We're not in agreement in terms of who prints the ballot paper. We're not in agreement in terms of where the ballot paper is going to be, the security of the ballot paper, its distribution. We're not in agreement, and this is 3 months before an election. We're not in agreement in terms of the role that should be played by our important and esteemed security forces in terms of election. We're not agreed.
When you say that, you do sound partisan, defensive, and maybe even alarmist. I'm looking at independent analysts like Eldred Manansanguri, director of the Mass Public Opinion Institute in Harare. He says this, he says in a direct quote, "This election looks likely to be the freest, fairest, and possibly the most peaceful since 2000.
Well, he's saying it looks like. It's his opinion. And this is the beauty of a democracy. When you have a diversity of opinions, that's his view. Our view is that this election has the potential to be a free and fair election, but we need to resolve some of the fundamental issues around how the election itself is going to be conducted, whether or not the voters' roll has been audited, whether or not these processes that are supposed to be respected in terms of the electoral amendment of the Electoral Act are respected. Just yesterday we had Parliament. We did not agree, the opposition and the ruling party, on the content, character and substance of that Electoral Act.
The reason I talked about wisdom, responsibility, maturity is that clearly in Zimbabwe, political temperature can rise very quickly. We've seen it happen in the past. It just seems to me that you and one of your associates in the opposition, Tendai Biti, have been stoking the flames in recent days. Tendai Biti said, unless we get a clear commitment from the securocrats, by which I think he means the ZANU-PF military nexus, unless we get clear commitments from them that they won't interfere, the election, he says, will be a sham. And you have said that if you don't get your way on things like the ballot papers, you're going to bring the poll to a halt. So you're raising the temperature, aren't you?
We're lowering the temperatures. In fact, Mr. Mnangagwa is raising the temperatures by continuing to be the old order. He has refused to part with the past. He has refused to be the face of the new order. In fact, he has chosen to be the new face of the old order. And that is our fundamental issue. If we are to be able to move forward, let us agree on how the election is going to be held. Wisdom is not when you destroy a country. Wisdom is not when you have problems that we are currently having, cash shortages, failure to deal with economic issues, economic mismanagement, corruption like the one we have seen in terms of the airways in Zimbabwe, where there's been massive corruption under the tutelage and tutorship of President Mnangagwa.
Well, Emmerson Mnangagwa has a record, and his record is that as soon as he got into power, he talked about truth and reconciliation and passed measures
and where's the chip?
Well, hang on, I haven't finished his record. He also passed an Indigenization and Economic Empowerment Act, which foreign investors seem to like, that foreign governments seem to like. He's also pledged to fight what you've just described as the scourge of corruption. He said, and I'm quoting him, "We have now committed to the effort to defeat corruption that's plagued our nation. We're going to require cabinet ministers to declare their assets and create anti-corruption courts." But the man is actually delivering on a transformation.
In fact, we are the change that delivers. Mr. Mnangagwa is the change that doesn't deliver. In fact, Mr. Mnangagwa represents change without a change. He represents the face of the old.
Why do you think governments like the UK government are reaching out to Mnangagwa and suggesting that they think he's proving to be a good leader in Zimbabwe?
They are reaching out to the people of Zimbabwe. Let me say this. You cannot have change without change agents. You cannot have transformation without transformers. Mr. Mnangagwa is not a transformer. There can never be any reform without reformers. What he is he is a transactional leader who has transacted a particular process in November, and he is there not as the face of transition, not as the face of transformation. We represent that change that is here to
Well, you keep telling me you represent change, and that's, I guess, an attractive slogan for many people in your country, but there's a difference between making promises you can keep and making promises that are nothing more than fantasy. Let's go through a few of yours. In January, you told the people of your country that you could solve Zimbabwe's liquidity crisis in 2 weeks, and indeed, if you failed to do so, you would leave office, because you said you are committed. 2 weeks to solve the liquidity crisis. I mean, that's nonsense, isn't it?
It's not nonsense. It's very sensible. In fact, that is the most credible message that has ever been received by Zimbabweans. Why am I saying so? The most fundamental issue in Zimbabwe is not a crisis of cash. but a crisis of leadership, a crisis and a deficit of confidence and trust. The issues that we are going to deal with are product
that's been dogging a country for years
of ICT. Mr. BT,
that is beyond nonsense. That's just complete Alice in Wonderland.
That is the future. I'm a visionary. I'm a young man, and I've said we must begin to build infrastructure, such as the infrastructure you have in the UK. What it does entail is that...
I'm no transport expert, but it's more than 400 kilometres from Bulawayo to Harare.
Indeed.
What this train of yours, it's going to be travelling at 800 kilometres an hour.
On the African continent. You are aware of Morocco recently unveiled a bullet train that was launched. You are aware of Ethiopia where they've had tube trains. This is the kind of promise that I'm giving. And I know that it's a
Zimbabweans surely want politicians who are serious, who tell them things, make promises that can be delivered. I mean, patently that promise cannot be delivered. In fact, the one promise that seems to me you could deliver on if you wanted to, but maybe it wouldn't be wise, is just a few days ago you made a speech saying that you were going to chuck out all of the Chinese investors and workers currently in Zimbabwe. You said, I'll call the Chinese and tell them that the deals they've signed are unacceptable and they should return to their country. Do you think that would be good for Zimbabwe?
And I must say that our transformational promise is premised on infrastructure. As I indicated, infrastructure is going to be key.
But the Chinese have delivered airports, they've delivered roads, they've delivered clean water and sanitation infrastructure, and you want to throw them out.
I have not said I will throw anyone out. I've said that all the deals that have been signed have to be reviewed, have to be assessed and audited in the context of what is good for Zimbabwe, what is best for Zimbabwe, what is safe for investment. And that position has nothing to do with any nationality. We are busy to do business with all serious investors across the whole world, the Chinese included.
But it is about credibility, isn't it? And as I list all of these different policies of yours, do you actually think that you're striking the right balance between populism and credibility?
I think the credibility is very high. In fact, Zimbabweans are going to vote for us. They believe in our message. They know that what we are promising is not something that is beyond our reach. We have promised in the inclusive government. We delivered. When I was Minister of Information and Communication Technology, during the inclusive government, I dealt with issues of Wi-Fi, I dealt with issues of connectivity, bringing in the fiber optic cables into the country. So I'm not the sort of guy who would just give empty promises. I'm a serious guy. I'm in business. I'm in the digital age. And these things that I'm saying are going to be delivered, are available. We have BOT and BOOs in terms of triple Ps, public-private partnership agreements that we are ready to put in place to make sure that we deliver on transportation, on energy, on water, and of course on communication. You
say you're a serious and credible guy, and of course that's being measured not just inside Zimbabwe but around the world. You went at the end of last year to Washington DC, and a lot of serious questions were raised about your behaviour in Washington DC. You did see some senior people on Capitol Hill, some Congress people, but you also claimed that you'd seen Donald Trump. You claimed you had a conversation with him in which you said he asked you how much you needed to move the country forward. You told him $15 billion, and he said to you that he would provide the money if you won the election. That was not true, was it?
Very true that, yes, in terms of our reconstruction program, according to the African Development Bank...
No, but what I mean is, it was not true that you'd seen Donald Trump and that Donald Trump indicated to you that he would provide, if you won the election, $15 billion.
All those statements were said by other people, not what I said.
Well, no, because there is a video which shows you at a rally in January back home in Zimbabwe saying that Donald Trump had pretty much promised $15 billion.
I said we met the Trump administration.
So to be clear, because some people in Zimbabwe are still confused, you're now telling me you did not meet Donald Trump.
We did not. No. We met the Trump administration. And that's the point I made.
Well, the White House was so irritated by what you did say that they came out, issued a statement saying, we never support individuals or political parties.
Which is correct. It is never a support on the political party.
Well, I know it's correct, because that's precisely what they said.
And I agree with that position. It is the support to a government of the day. When we form the next government, there are things that we've said we would want to see in place.
Did you tell the Americans that you would like to see sanctions stay in place until after the election, i.e. that you would like to see the sanctions remain as long as Emerson Mnangagwa was in power?
Certainly not.
So you want the sanctions lifted as soon as possible?
we have said sanctions are not good for the country, but it takes two to tango. We must also have our obligation in terms of observing human rights, good governance within our own country, respecting our own citizens, so that we are able to be also admitted as respectable players in the family of nations.
Emmerson Mnangagwa has all of the instruments of power at his disposal. He has the backing, of course, of the ruling ZANU-PF party and the machine that goes with that. He is going to win this election, isn't he? I mean, you're putting up a strong fight, but he's going to win.
I don't know where you're getting this. He's going to lose this election.
I'm getting, I suppose, a feel from talking to people in Zimbabwe, reading the press, that ZANU-PF, because Mugabe and Grace Mugabe are now off the scene, still commands the loyalty of the people of Zimbabwe.
So, but Mr. Mugabe is not Mnangagwa. Mr. Mnangagwa is coming in with a completely fractured party. He has his own part of the party, but clearly he will not win this election. I will defeat President Mnangagwa in this election. Let us go to the election. This is a very crucial election, just like the 1980 independence election. It's actually the old versus the new. It's an election between the bad versus the good. And I can tell you that next time you invite me here, yes, you'll be my guest leading the people of Zimbabwe.
Well, we'll see what happens next. But Nelson Chamisa, for now, thank you very much for being on HARDtalk.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed.